Hi, I'm Raymond Yi. I cover all the customs and regulatory issues for the Asia Pacific region for DHL Express. Okay, so when the lockdowns first started, we had a lot of confusion as to what was going on. And as a result of that, um, we had issues with whether we could operate. And so eventually, I think there was a lot of more communication from the government. Express couriers were considered as essential services. So when the lockdowns first happened, there was a lot of instability and there was a lot of confusion. But now I think with as we continue, even with the second waves, etc., there's already a lot more information as to what is entailed in the lockdown. So that's more from a regulatory perspective. Now, from a business perspective, the the from a business perspective, the impact has been actually quite positive because a lot of customers have relied on transportation to get their goods and services across borders. And so we've realized that demand had increased, but we were facing a lot of challenges, not from the lockdowns alone, but also from airlines who were being put out of service as a result of the lockdowns. And as such, we had issues about finding sufficient space for planes and cargo belly holds, etc., to fill planes up. And so there were a lot of backlogs and there were issues that were related to severe delays at the border. So that situation has improved since. Now, of course, in the longer term, we will only be as successful as our customers. So I think that still remains to be seen how customers change their supply chains and how customers' businesses are impacted. And so it remains to be seen how that will change also, whether, customers will go more into nationalistic type strategies for their supply chains, or whether they'll continue to rely on cross-border trade. So we're still unsure for the longer term, but I think from the short to the medium term, from an initial instability, things have been looking quite positive actually for the transportation industry. Customers have also accelerated their digitalization plans. There was a comment that was made about how companies now have been accelerated so fast that they're probably 10 years ahead of their previous plans in terms of digitalization. And I think this is because only of the situation from the lockdowns in COVID, that now companies are reliant on for example, more B2C type channels, right? So direct business to consumer type channels, rather than the more traditional channels of B2B, because of all the restrictions and all the difficulties that come with that. So that only means then that we have to be able to adjust, as transportation companies, be able to adjust to these kinds of changes in customer behavior. And does that mean then that volumes may change from larger bulk items into smaller pieces, etc., etc. At DHL Express, of course, we have been staying very, very close to our customers, and we're ready, of course, to manage any of those changes as they come along. I think as a start, coordination, as we've seen with any kind of crisis, be it a financial crisis or otherwise, like this, a health crisis, it knows no borders. And so to have a siloed response to how to address this crisis will not help. So I think the challenge would be for the leaders to really, really be to be coordinated in the way they respond. The issue we had at the very beginning was how you saw a spate of very, very different approaches and how to manage this crisis. Some countries went into more stringent lockdowns, other countries did not and had more relaxed lockdowns, etc. Right? And so this caused a lot of issues because if one country, in theory, was very successful in curtailing any spread of the virus, and if another country was a little bit more relaxed and seeing, a tremendous increase in infections, for example, then borders will continue to remain closed. But if they were more coordinated, then you would have seen a lot more cohesiveness, a lot more capability for ASEAN to consider themselves as one integrated space, right, rather than a fragmentation of different countries. So the ability to coordinate and the ability to speak to each other would have been much more important, and it still is. I think there could be a lot more room for improvement.